Hello friends, and welcome to my channel, or welcome back. My name is Elise, and this is my mystical bookshelf. And today, as promised, I have a lot of thoughts on Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte, and I want to make some slight comparisons to the adaptation that came out on Galentine's Day, no less, which is February 13th for those who don't know. And I think Galentine's Day has been a thing for quite some time. So I'm gonna move my camera back just a smidge because the sun is kind of bright. I don't want to glare myself out here. But anyway, so yeah, Wuthering Heights. I think I had the option to read it in high school, but I did not. And I think I did with good reason, because I just listened to it on Audible, and it was available for freezies, and it was only available for free until February 11th. So unfortunately, if you also wanted to listen to it, you will have to use a credit, or you could find it on Libby. But I found it on Libby as well, and I think it's very dependent on the narrator, because, no shade, but the narrator on Libby was horrible, and narrator on Audible was fantastic. So, you've been warned. I tried really hard to listen to the Audible, or the Libby version, and I just couldn't. It just wasn't for me. It really wasn't for me. I was like, this just isn't, it shouldn't be read by an older woman, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, so if you don't know, Wuthering Heights is, from what I understand, it's considered a great love story. But, upon listening to it, I was like, girls, are we okay? That's not a love story. This is more of a horror novel. Like, listening to it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is kind of scary. It's a little ooky spooky. And I also, upon listening to it, I had some help interpreting it by Michaela Can Read. And she's a YouTuber, and she made a very extensive video on Wuthering Heights. So I suggest, if you are like me and you are listening to it or reading it and you're kind of confused, I would go watch her video, because it was a masterpiece, to say the least. But Wuthering Heights is about Heathcliff and Catherine, and their passion, I guess, is the best way I can describe it. They grew up together as children, and Heathcliff was presented to Catherine's family with her brother, and as a vagabond, or a child who has no ties with anyone or anything like that. And I've read interpretations that Heathcliff was the illegitimate child of Catherine's father. So it's all about, it's passion and obsession, along with like weird incest. I don't know if that's gonna ruin my algorithm talking about that, but yeah. It's basically like Heathcliff and Catherine were like obsessed with each other, and they became best friends, basically. And they didn't like each other at first, or Catherine didn't like him at first, because he was this weird child who just came to live with them randomly. But as time goes on, they grow very fond of each other, and Heathcliff is like obsessed with Catherine. And it's very clear early on that this passion that he feels is going to engulf both of them and engulf their families as a result. So this is like this is basically what I would give the definition of like lust kills. That's gonna be my tagline for the video, is lust kills. That's how I thought of it. It's like these feelings of overwrought passion and like obsession, like basically kill their family line, essentially. And it's very dramatic. It's a very dramatic book. I really enjoyed it, actually. I mean, listening to it was a trip for sure, because I was like, I didn't know what was going to happen going into it. And I can see where some parallels are drawn with modern, like, TV and stuff. Like, and this is going to sound real blasphemous in terms of classic literature, but with Catherine and Heathcliff, I feel like their obsession, prideful trope is kind of played out a lot with other modern characters. Like, one couple that came to mind was Dwight and Angela from The Office, and I say this because Angela is in the same boat as Catherine. Like, Catherine is denying of her feelings towards Heathcliff when she's like 18 and she's getting ready to get married, because that's what you did back in the 1800s. You got married super early and super young because everybody kind of died super young. So you kind of had to get going with that, or else you'd become a spinster and you'd be old, and women didn't have very many rights back then. So it was dependent you married the right person to give yourself status and advantages versus someone who doesn't have a spouse, basically. So she's kind of like denying her feelings for Heathcliff when she's this young woman, and she ends up marrying someone named Edgar Linton. And Edgar Linton is this, he's like so not on Heathcliff's level. He kind of reminds me of Andy, I guess, in like the Angela Dwight weird love triangle thing. Because, and I don't want to say that Dwight totally reminds me of Heathcliff, but Heathcliff is definitely the more superior masculine man, even though he's not like up to Catherine's standards, and it would be in Catherine's disservice to marry Heathcliff. But I mean, overall, I would say that Catherine's heart wants to marry Heathcliff, but in her head she knows that she can't, because Heathcliff is basically a servant, and he would like bring her down socially when it comes to stuff like the 1800s class versus poor. And then the racial aspect of it is also really interesting and nuanced, because in every adaptation Heathcliff is white when he's clearly not white in the book. And that's something that I think is very frustrating. And that's also what's frustrating about these adaptations of movies, is like this new one that's so sensationalized and passionate with Margot Robbie and Jacob Elordi. It's like it takes classic literature and it like spins it and says, I'm just gonna make this my fantasy. And when I heard that the director had like thought of this as her fantasy with how she views Wuthering Heights, I'm just like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Don't even market it as Wuthering Heights. Market it as something different, but say that you thought this is what you thought Wuthering Heights was like to you. But don't call it that same name, because it's kind of like you're not really adapting it. You're just kind of like changing it to fit your fantasy narrative, which is something that I found frustrating. And that's why I'm not going to watch it, because it's really sensationalized. And I know there's lots of spicy scenes, and it would be basically like watching a porno, and I'm not into that. I'm not going to be into that. Nope, definitely not. And I say that, I don't know. It's just really weird to me. But anyway, so like, I'm not saying Dwight is completely like Heathcliff, but I think Heathcliff and Catherine are kind of in the same dynamic as Dwight and Angela, because Dwight is so like not Angela's type of person. Like, he's really kind of, he's out there. He's pretty out there in terms of interests go. And Angela thinks she needs this white picket fence. She thinks she needs social status, which is kind of like Catherine, in a way. Catherine also wants social status. But Angela and Dwight's love story is completely like very mild compared to Catherine and Heathcliff. And like, I think the only comparison I'm really making is that Angela and Catherine are very prideful, and Heathcliff and Dwight are more like, this is what I want, and this is how I'm gonna get it. But Heathcliff doesn't end up getting it. He ends up just being a really bitter, terrible old person, and I'm just so sad for him. I really am sad for him, because I can tell that he does, in a certain way, love Catherine, but it's kind of creepy at times. And I think the one scene in the book that really floored me was like, I'm going to dig up her body and look at her and see her beauty once again. And I'm like, okay. You know, I saw a comment on the YouTube video from Michaela, and it was really funny to me, because it's kind of like, I understand this mentality as a woman. It was like, if my man doesn't want to dig me up 20 years later to make sure I'm still beautiful, then he ain't the one. And it was really funny to me. I'm like, okay, I understand. I get that comment. I get that. It's funny. It is really funny, but it's also kind of like creepy and obsessive. And I'm like, Heathcliff, what are you doing, my guy? You're losing your mind. So that's kind of where the lust kills type of thing, because it's like Heathcliff is so passionate throughout this book that he basically goes crazy. And that's where I'm like, this kind of feels like a horror and a romance all in one. It's very scary. Parts of it have really spooked me, I'm not gonna lie. Like the part where our narrator, the lovely, dumb narrator, oh man, I can't remember his name. He was so stupid though. I loved him, but he was stupid. But yeah, our lovely narrator, when he meets Catherine's ghost, and he's like, be gone, be gone. And Heathcliff gets all upset and is like, no, Catherine, come back. I really feel for him, because he wants to spend eternity with Catherine, and I think that's a very noble pursuit. But in terms of like healthy relationships, that ain't one of them. That ain't one of them. That's kind of a really backwards way to look at love. This book kind of perverts love in a way that makes it not love. It's definitely lust and obsession. That's basically what the whole book is about. And like, they have one passionate kiss. So the fact that these movies are sensationalizing that one passionate scene is like, why are we doing this? Why does everything have to be so sexualized and sensationalized? Because it doesn't need to be, because it just doesn't. Like, that one scene was great. That was where I could understand where the great romance came from, because it's really nice. It's a nice, passionate kiss, and you know they did more, but it's not explicitly stated, because, you know, Emily Bronte is not, obviously she's not a spicy queen. Why would she be? It's the 1800s. Was anybody a spicy queen? I don't think so. It was the 1800s. I have to reiterate that. And so I think that passion was really well executed without being graphic. And I think we're kind of losing that in books nowadays. Everybody's like, I want all the details. Give me the details. And I'm like, do we need the details? Is that really what the book's about? No, it's not. It's not about the details. It's about, I want the yearning, the passion, the obsession. Well, maybe not obsession, but like in this case, it's definitely obsession. And so they have this passionate embrace and whatnot, and then Catherine dies in childbirth, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, girl, I didn't realize you died so soon. Like, I'm a quarter of the way through the book, and the main character basically dies. And I'm like, what is going on? I was not expecting that. Because I had come in with this interpretation of everybody saying this is a great love story, and Heathcliff and Catherine, I don't know if anybody was calling them OTP, but maybe they were, I don't know. And I was just like, but she dies right away. That's not fair. So I was kind of upset that she passed away after giving birth to her daughter, who's also named Catherine, but is called Kathy. You see, this is where the book was kind of confusing me, and this is where Michaela came in handy, because I was like, I was listening to it, and then I would stop, and I would go to break at work, and I would play this YouTube video, and I would watch it on my break. And I'd be like, okay, I'm this far into the book, and there's all these people. There's Heathcliff, there's Linton, Edgar Linton, who goes I don't know, goes by Mr. Linton, I guess. And then there's the narrator, and then there's Nellie, who is a pot stirrer for sure. I agree with Michaela on that point. She definitely stirs the pot, and Nellie is like the plot device in this book, which is really funny. She's like explaining all this tea to our dear narrator, who's also telling us the story. So it's like a story within a story, which is very interesting to me, and that's a whole nother plot device that I don't think I have the mental capacity to tell you about. So, yeah, then we got Nellie, and then we got Isabella, who is like a faint side character at one point in the book. And that's another thing that really I thought was interesting, because Isabella is like infatuated with Heathcliff also. So that's another where the lust kills kind of thing, because Isabella's like, oh, Heathcliff's not that bad. Girl, he is that bad, and you need to run away. But she didn't run away. She ran away with him. And they eloped. And yeah, so that's where the YouTube video comes in handy, because I was like, don't know what's going on. So I listened to the YouTube video and I watched it and I was like, okay, now I get it. And then I go back to the book, and then I keep listening to the book, and I get it. I get it a lot better now. So honestly, I need to read more classic great literature, because my comprehension skills with Old English are kind of like in the basement. The bar is in the basement. I need to get better at it, because in high school, I didn't listen to, but I tried to read Pride and Prejudice. And I tried to listen to that too, but it still didn't work for me. But that's not the point of this video. So, Isabella and Heathcliff, they get married. And that's also where my confusion started again. Because they get married. They are married for like 3 years, I think. Something crazy like that. And then they have a child, a son, who Isabella names Linton, after her last name. And I'm like, what are we doing? Why are we naming all these people such weird names? We got Catherine II, we got Linton, we got Mr. Linton, who's Edgar, and then we got Heathcliff. And then we have, I don't know, Nellie, who's the only person that really I kept straight in my brain, because I was like, okay, Nellie's a straightforward name. But yeah, so then that's where where the passion dies again, because Isabella has all these ideas about who Heathcliff is, and he's really this terrible person at this point, because he's so distraught over Catherine. And I feel like Heathcliff basically just curses everyone's family and bloodline, because he like holds Catherine's daughter Kathy hostage in the Heights, the Wuthering Heights estate of sorts, and it's just really weird. And I'm just like, he's definitely going crazy. By the end of the book, he's a crazy man. And the end of the book is what really spooked me, because it's like he has this wild look on his face, like he's possessed by something, and then he just randomly dies, smiling like a maniac. And then at the very end, we hear the narrator explain he thinks that everyone's resting at peace. And I'm like, brother, I don't think anybody's resting at peace, but that's my opinion. I definitely think that Catherine and Heathcliff are like roaming the earth together at the end, which is, I guess, a happy ending, but I don't know how peaceful it is for both of them, for either of them. But I know that book, it was such a wild ride. I gave it 5 stars. I mean, I can't sit here and talk about it and say, like, it's not 5 stars, because it is, even though it was crazy. And I was like, why is this a great love story? This is not a great love story. I think we have love very convoluted in terms of the world. And I go through all that in my last video of Love and Treason. That's what love is. Of Love and Treason is true love. Wuthering Heights, while it is passionate, it's not love. It's more along the lines of lust and obsession, and it's not love. It's infatuation of some sort. But the book was great. Emily Bronte's writing is beautiful. She has really great descriptive scenes of the moors, and it's definitely a vibe. I definitely want to listen to it again with the version on Audible, so I might use my credit for this month and buy it so I can always re-listen to it, because I kind of want to re-listen to it in October for like spooky season, because it's a spooky book. It feels like a spooky book to me, even though it takes place in the summertime. It's definitely got those like foggy English vibes where it's like there's monsters lurking in the moors, there's ghosts and the moans of passion. It's just very interesting to me, and I would totally recommend it. I really would recommend it. It's one of my favorite books that I've read this year so far, and I haven't read too many books this year yet. And I don't know why I haven't read too many. I think it's because it's Lent and I'm trying really hard to try and listen to more faith-based Christian fiction, but I'm having a hard time finding recommendations. Because last year around this time, I listened to Eve's Daughters, and that was beautiful. That was a really great book. I want something akin to that, but I can't seem to find anything. So I guess for the end of this video, if you have any Christian fiction recommendations, I would love to hear about it, because your girl needs help. Because I'm looking up Christian fiction and nothing is really catching my eye. I tried listening to Something Good by Vanessa Miller, and that wasn't for me. That wasn't for me. It was a DNF for sure. And I'm sad about it because the premise of it sounded good, but the writing was kind of poor. So if you have some real authentic Christian books, I would love to hear about it. And this is a longer video, so if you stayed till the end, thank you. I appreciate it. And I appreciate who is ever liking my videos. I think that's lovely. Thank you for doing that. And yeah, just comment about Wuthering Heights and about Christian fiction so we can talk together. And that'll be it for this one. So thank you for watching, and thank you for subscribing, and I will see you next week. Goodbye, friends.